what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome back to another episode of Found Footage Fridays with my co-host Tom Reimer.
Hey, everybody.
I don't know why, probably because of the holiday. It feels like it's been a really long time since we've recorded, but I guess it really hasn't
been a couple, like maybe a week.
maybe a week.
Yeah,
it just feels like
Thanksgiving.
it, I guess. The holidays have me on like a different,
Yes.
time thing. Yeah, so today we are talking the 2015 found footage film, The Gallows.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I was so sure I was going to get it right that time. So this was one that Tom and I had both already seen.
Yep.
But I actually had it on a revisit list for a reason that I'll talk about a little bit later in the episode. So I rewatched it, I don't know, 2 nights ago or something like that. I rewatched it to prepare for the episode. But yeah, so we're talking The Gallows. So the scores are not too nice on this one. It is streaming right now on Hulu. Otherwise, I think you have to rent it. Yeah, it's on Hulu. So this currently has a 4.2 out of 10 on IMDb, a 63% on Google, and a 22% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. And the audience score, just so you know, Tom, is 10,000 plus ratings.
Wow. It's so interesting because this is not, believe it or not, this is not a very small budget, I don't believe, found footage film. This comes from like Blumhouse or something like that. So
yeah, the budget, Warner Brothers. It's Warner Brothers.
Wow. Yeah.
The budget for this is $100,000.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like on the trailer, it said like from the people who brought you like Paranormal Activity or something like that. So, this is an interesting one. This is, I watched this, like maybe a year ago. Originally, I think I've seen it more than once at this point. Yeah, and there's a lot that I like about this one. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but I do like it. Yeah. But we've talked about this before. We've mentioned this before, and I can sense there's something about it that you're not sure about.
Yeah. I saw this. I think the first time I saw it was when it first came out. Because anything found footage after Paranormal Activity, I was like super on top of, you know. And so I saw this when it came out.
Which was like 2015? Is it
2015? Yeah. And the short synopsis, really quick, is just 20 years after a horrific accident during a small town school play, students at the school resurrect the failed show in a misguided attempt to honor the anniversary, but soon discover that some things are better left alone.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to do ratings?
Yeah, let's just go there. Just go right to ratings.
You want me to give mine first?
You go first this time.
Okay. Let me start with saying my initial rating for this, the first time I watched it. The first time I watched this, I probably would have given it like a 2 or a 3.
Okay.
So a revisit, there's still a lot of stuff I don't like, but on a revisit, I would give it like, I don't know, like a 5.
Okay. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's a substantial growth. And one of the reasons I had said that it was on my revisit list is because when I saw this movie originally, I was with someone who hated it from beginning to end, complained about it the whole time we were watching it. And so like, I think like we've talked about this briefly in another episode, but like when you go to experience a movie for the first time, and that's kind of the energy you're getting, it tends to affect your experience. And so I was kind of like, you're right. That was like a not so great movie. And so this time I was able to just watch it by myself. It's been years since I've seen it. And I think it did bring something a little different on a rewatch by myself than I was able to get the first time. So
okay.
5
all right.
out of 10.
Yeah, I was surprised the first time I heard you talk about this movie to hear you didn't like it, but that makes sense. You know,
yeah.
You could go the other way too. You could watch a really terrible movie,
yeah,
and have a blast with it if you're with the right crowd. So it really, that can affect a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm surprised to hear how low some of those audience ratings are, because I think that there are moments in this movie that are legitimately scary. Has some really good moments in it.
Mhm.
Um, and it's funny. I think when I first watched this, my initial watch, I thought this was great. Like I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I've had time to think about it, watch it
Sure.
again.
Yeah.
So my rating, right now, and last episode, my rating changed over the course of our discussion. So we'll see if that happens. Right, which is allowed on this show for if
Yeah,
you're a
we make the rules. We can do whatever we
viewer.
want.
Yep, yep. So I'm going to give this movie a solid 7.
Okay.
7 tapes out of 10.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, so without spoiling anything, I really like the story. I like the
Okay.
concept. I think the concept is pretty unique. I mean, the
Very.
entire
Yep.
story, except for like a couple clips outside, takes place inside the school.
Mm-hmm.
And that this accident happened. And I also thought, I was surprised by this because I don't know any of these actors and actresses. I don't know any
Yep.
of them.
Unknown. Yep.
Um, they were very compelling. Their relationships, their friendship interactions, like the things they said and did when they were
Mm-hmm.
scared, when they were joking around, like all of it was super believable. It was really
Absolutely.
compelling.
Yeah. I think partly one reason I like this movie is the setting. In
Yeah.
that you might not know this about me, but I've done a lot of theater in my life. Yeah, I know. Surprise,
I
surprise.
didn't know that.
Big reveal tonight. So I could relate to being backstage in a
Yeah.
theater when it's locked up,
Okay.
all the lights are off, and so like for me,
Yeah.
that made it more like I could put myself right there
Yeah, that makes
in
sense.
those moments. So
Yeah.
maybe that made it scarier for me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I liked the characters' relationships. I
Yeah.
thought they were believable. I like that they were all unknown actors,
Yep.
as far as I know. Um,
Yeah.
and there were really just a lot of great, tense, scary moments. So without spoiling anything, yeah,
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest weakness for me, one of the things that I didn't like, I can't really say. I'll have to say when we get into spoilers, but
yep,
one of the things that I didn't like was the physical manifestation of seeing something versus it being an invisible thing, if that
sure,
makes sense.
yep,
It's like we've talked about before, and I talk about this all the time, whether it's found footage or not, less is more. And so when you
mhm,
see things too often, you become desensitized. And at least for me, they lose their magic because you're just like, oh yeah, I've seen you already. Like I
right,
like this
right.
like concept of the invisible pull, the invisible yank or smack or whatever, like the invisible force that's
Which
doing this.
which we do get in this movie,
You
right?
do.
Yeah,
There's bits and pieces, and those pieces are really strong. Those
yep,
moments are really like, oh, like, good moments. But then
yeah,
the moments where there's a lot of visibility, it was
yeah.
like
I
it
can
just
see that.
wasn't as effective for me personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally see that. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious what your friend, like, what was that experience like with your friend, and what were they thinking also?
Yeah.
Why
So
did they hate it so much on the first view?
well, okay. So it was so I saw this, I rented it. I don't know if this was in
I
theater.
rented it too. Isn't that funny? Like,
That
yeah,
is funny. Was this one
yeah.
in theaters? I don't remember. I
I'm
don't
not sure. It might have been. If it was, I mean, I rented it. Yeah, I rented it
I
on
rented it, but
DVD.
I
Yeah.
rented it not long after it came out, I think. But
Mhm.
so it would have been like, it had if it did have a theatrical release, then I would have rented it probably when it became available on like
Same. Yeah.
Redbox or something,
Yeah.
probably. But
Oh
yeah,
no,
no,
I
this
oh I
was.
rented it from the library. Come on, I borrowed it from the library. I'm that guy. Yeah.
I mean, you gotta. That's a great resource.
Seriously.
It is. Um, no, so it was well, boyfriend at the time would go on to be my husband, but he was very he's like really, 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 really nitpicky about movies.
Okay.
Like really nitpicky, especially found footage. Like he likes found footage, but he's like really nitpicky about it. And so it
Okay.
was like the kids were too whiny. But I'm like, yeah, but they're teenagers. Like, they're scared. Like, they would be
Yeah.
whiny. If I was in that situation, if this were real life, I'd be whiny too. Like, I'd
Did
be
you think they were?
scared.
Did you think they were whiny in the Blair Witch Project? Because
He hates the Blair Witch
okay,
Project.
well, yeah, super whiny,
Loathes the Blair Witch
very
Project. But
whiny.
so, like, the whole time we were watching it, because we were watching it at home, it was like, oh, that's stupid, or oh, that's like, just these little like
Yeah,
comments, just
yeah,
constantly the whole time. And I think, yeah, and it just was like, that's all I heard from start to finish. And yet, and the other side of it too is not just what is said, but the disruption it calls in your immersion. Because when you're into
sure.
what's happening, that's how the suspense builds,
Yeah.
So when it's interrupted by this constant conversation, then it messes those moments up, and they're not
Yeah.
as scary,
Yeah. I've experienced the absolute opposite too. So as I was saying, like I
Oh
saw,
yeah.
and this isn't a bad movie. I love this movie. Maybe I love it though because of this experience, this initial experience. Is Freddy versus Jason, not
I
found
love
footage,
that
but
movie.
like I
That's
saw that
fun.
in theaters with.
Mhm.
That's probably the wildest crowd I've ever seen a movie with. There were
Yeah.
people cheering for Jason. There were people cheering for Freddy, and it was
Oh, that
wild.
sounds like fun.
I think because of that, I love that movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see it. It goes both ways.
Yeah, it can definitely affect the experience for sure. So I think, and I would be, I mean, obviously I can't know now because I've already seen it, but it would have been curious to know what my thoughts on it would have been had I had a first watch like I
Oh
did my
yeah,
second watch. Because
yeah,
sometimes it's like, well, now I already knew the entire story, so some of that magic was already lost, right? So
mhm.
it'd be
So
interested to know, like, if I would have liked it more.
yeah, so like when I watch a lot of these movies, I
Mhm.
watch them in like basically a dark,
Yeah,
quiet space by myself.
yeah,
And it's like literally a basement where I'm sitting right now. And so
right, yeah,
it definitely adds to it. And if I'm gonna be scared, this is where I would be scared, I think.
yeah,
So that helps.
yeah. But yeah, it was just constant nitpicking stuff that just like, made me not like it, or made me think I didn't like it. But I think it got that's a pretty big gap to go from like a 2 to a 5.
It's
That's a big
huge. Yeah.
gap.
Yeah.
So I obviously got a lot more out of it.
Yeah, because a
During
2 would be like, I think for you, the worst you've rated a movie here. If that was,
Yeah,
I don't think you've given a 2.
nope.
I think I've given a 3.
Yeah, I think a 4 is the lowest I've gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And the only thing I've ever on camera rated lower than that, I rated a 3, and that was the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
You rated it that low, huh?
I hated that movie.
That's wow.
I know. I know. But that's the only thing that I've ever like, because I think that like a lot of times when I watch scary movies and stuff, even if I don't like them, I walk away. I try to walk away with a level of appreciation for what it was doing. Like I say things like all the time about how like I liked it for what it was, because some
Mhm.
things are still entertaining, and they don't have to be these like award-winning films to still be
Sure.
entertaining. And
Except for Hereditary. That movie was terrible. Zero. Zero out of
did
10.
you watch this? Okay, last tangent, I swear.
We've talked about this movie before on the show, by the
Yes,
way. Everyone.
yes. Did you watch, or have you watched the 101 Scariest Moments on Shudder?
I have not. Should I?
Huh?
Am I
Yeah,
gonna be
it's
really
pretty
upset?
good.
Is that like number 2 or something like that?
Number 3.
Shut up.
I swear.
That's
I
so
tweeted about it. I was so angry. I was
that's
like,
so
I said, I
frustrating.
think I used the F word like 3 times in my post.
What's 1 and 2? Like on the
2 was
because now I don't trust
The
this list at all.
Shining,
Okay. Yeah.
one of the moments in The Shining.
Yeah.
And then number 1 was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original.
Scariest though?
And the moment they picked is, that moment where he grabs that guy and he yanks him and he slams the
Yeah.
door?
Yeah.
That's
I
the
mean,
moment that they
it's
chose
not the
as the number
scariest.
1 scariest movie moment ever for horror.
No.
Not even close, right?
No. I mean, The Shining should be in the top 3. Sure.
Yeah, I think The Thing Shining. There were some classics that made top 10 that really should have been in the top 5, I think.
Wow.
But then
that's not.
but there's a lot
Was
of
it the
movies.
moment in Hereditary? Also the terrible, terrible moment.
No. The moment they chose is the moment where the son wakes up and she's in the corner on the wall.
Okay.
Like a spider.
Worst movie ever. I stand by it.
For those of you who have not seen the found footage live that we did, the moment I knew I wanted to be Tom's friend is when he outed himself as a Hereditary hater and like a group of people that love the film. And I was like, I also hate that movie.
It should say that on my profile on Twitter. Hates Hereditary.
At your own risk.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Way off topic. This happens.
Sorry. I just had to ask, since you brought up Hereditary, I had to ask because when I got to that and they said it was number 3, I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
I'm not even gonna check that out that
I was so mad.
No.
I'm gonna do my own list now. I'm like, I was so disappointed in the list. I was like, I'll make my own.
Scariest moments.
Scariest moments.
You're gonna do scariest moments. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do 101 because good Lord, but I'll probably do like a top 5 or something, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, ready to spoil?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So the thing that I didn't like the most is so we the kid that dies is an accident because he's a fill-in.
Yep.
And he was originally supposed to be the hangman, executioner, whatever.
Yeah.
So I loved the mask design. I appreciate that that's what he looks like. But why does he look like a grown man? Like, why does he look so like big and burly and like a professional wrestler when he's supposed to be like a teenager?
Unless, is that supposed to be like a spirit of some kind? I don't know. No. No, she's shaking her head. No. Yeah, that was a weird casting choice. Steroids, I don't know.
It was very strange because I know that sounds really simple, but we see him so much. Yeah, and we see him really close quite a few times. He gets, close. And so like I kept seeing him, I'm thinking, why does that look like a grown man? Like it's supposed to be this like scrawny little kid that we've already seen. We know what he looks like.
How long before was it supposed to be?
20 years.
I mean, a lot can happen in 20 years.
As a ghost, Tom.
I mean, ghost. Are you supposed to like wonder if he's a ghost or if he's
if he's a human being with mystical powers?
Lurking around.
You're making it worse. I'm going to lower my rating.
I'm like trying to solve the problem. Yeah, that's weird. It's funny that like that didn't like even stand out to me when I watched it. I wasn't like, why is he giant now? No,
he's big, like, and not just tall. Like tall kids can be tall, but it's just we've already seen Charlie. I think is his name.
They recast him. Why did they recast him? Yes.
Yeah, like it should have just been the same kid, and I'm gonna feel really dumb if it is. It does not look like it. It looks like a big guy. Yeah.
Huh. If you're watching, we're going to solicit your opinion. What was going on? Why was he larger as a ghost?
And yeah, I want to know. And
ghost.
I'm going to wait until you start talking about some points, and I'm going to look up if there's a separate person that plays the executioner. Because I'm going to feel really stupid if it's the same person.
It might not be. I think there's also like an interesting plot twist. I think that if you're really, I mean, if you watch any movies, you probably figured out, right? I mean, did you probably figure out the twist well before it happened? That was not my favorite part of this movie. But some of the best stuff was the simplest stuff. The walking around with the camera, backstage, in the rigging of the theater, outside at night, doors slamming, like stuff that was, practical effects were some of the best things in this movie. So if you like practical effects, there were some really, really good ones.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
You know, there was the thing with the TV and the static on the TV and,
Mm-hmm.
playing. I don't know what was going on there. But the twist at the end was strange. Well, how did you interpret that with the girl who was with them the whole time, who
Mm-hmm.
was still performing in the play? Was she a ghost? Was she
So,
just a crazed, obsessed fan, a relative?
well, so the girl is I assumed it was her daughter, but
Okay.
it cannot be Charlie's daughter because it was 20 years later.
I mean, it
So,
could be.
unless like, also, I'm really mad. It does not say who
Oh
played
wait,
him.
no, it couldn't have been. You're right. No, it couldn't have been stuff. Doing the math.
Yeah, it couldn't have been his daughter. So then why did she care? Was she just like brainwashed? It doesn't say who
I,
plays Charlie. Isn't maybe his name's
yeah.
not Charlie? Am I wrong?
No. We're just making a Charlie, Dave.
He looked like a Charlie.
Not sure. I'll look it up right now. Just as we have to know these things.
I do agree with you. There's some of the moments that when things happen, you know what moment I actually thought is such a simple moment, but there's that moment where the jerk, I don't know his name, the jerk friend is like bent down.
It's a technical.
What does he look like? A Peter. He looks like a Peter. So he's like bent down into a locker.
Yeah.
And the locker above him opens.
Uh-huh.
That was pretty creepy. There were some
a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Moments like that were really good. I liked.
There's no one named Charlie in the cast, by the way.
I know, but I didn't recognize any of the other names.
They're all just their actual names, like the actual actors' names. Reese, Pfeiffer, Ryan, Cassidy. Yeah, I don't know. Do they not have names?
Who is Stage Boy? I don't even know what that means.
No. Football player.
David the janitor. Cheerleader number 1. Oh, if you go further down, there's a soda drinking coach.
Parent of the nerd. That's all it says.
There's a bunch of those. There's like 10 parents of the nerd.
Chuckling student. This is weird. I've never seen a cast list quite like that.
Maybe
all right. We went down a path we didn't know we were going tonight.
Sorry, but that was one thing that really pulled me out. But like you said, I do think the practical effects of some of those moments was really well done.
Really
the
good,
subtle things like the footsteps overhead, the things slamming, noises, you know, all of that was good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was great. They're crawling. I really love they're up on the rigging, and then yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, I mean, but I can see what you're saying. There's also stuff that's confusing. And like, if you have to ask, what did that mean? Why did they do that? Like, I'm confused at the end of the movie. Yeah, I can see how that would take away from it. You don't want to be asking questions. I don't think. Not in a movie like this, at least.
Not like that. But like when he fell off the ladder, that was good. Like there's a lot of, but I really think the weakest scares for me were the ones where you could see the hangman. Like he was like so in my opinion, you know, the scene, the classic scene that's on like the cover of the movie where the cheerleader's like this in the red.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So when you look and you see him behind her, tell me that wouldn't have been better if you had just seen just the outline of Charlie's face or whatever his name is.
It would have been, but you should have directed and produced this movie.
I know. One day, Tom and I are going to blow the top off the found footage industry. We're going to make our own film.
Apparently, this is a series now. We just have discovered. So there's a sequel, which means maybe there'll be more than a sequel, which you could direct. Get the Gallows 3.
Everything from the first two and put it in the no, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. Well, just remember that you can't call it a series if it's a continuation, because that's not what a series is.
This is more inside humor references that nobody else.
You know what? Fans of the show will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Read through all the comments of our previous episodes. You'll know.
Yes. Yeah, I think like if she was sitting there like that, and you could just see the faintest outline of that teenager as himself, that would have scared me. That would have been so uncomfortable. But that big ass, like, I was like,
It
come on,
makes
man.
me think that we are missing something, and
You think?
that well, it doesn't make sense if that's just supposed to be a ghost version of the teenager. Like, right? Why would he be this hulking, mutant? Why wouldn't he be just the same person?
Unless I'm wrong, and it's
That's
just
what
the
I'm.
camera
That,
angles that made him look big, but he looked big. But like when she gets real close to the camera and she backs up and there's like a noose, I was on with
yeah.
all of that. And then she
Oh
just
yeah,
gets
that's
yanked
creepy.
back.
That's creepy. Yeah.
I was there for all of that. It's just the scenes where you see him, I'm like,
There are some creepy scenes where something's like hanging up above a head and just sort of like swaying. You just see feet, like that stuff
that
gives
stuff
me the
gets
creep.
me.
Yeah, that's really
Yep.
scary.
And the ropes moving.
Yep. Oh, that's scary. If you're, I think, and I might be wrong. I think if
Yeah.
you are a theater person, you will be scared by this movie. If you've experienced
That would make
being,
sense.
yeah, if you've experienced being backstage late at night, like this will give you the creeps, I think. And maybe if you haven't also, but like if you have, you're definitely going to relate to that feeling.
I also what I can say from when I watched it the first time, I did not guess that Pfeiffer was part of it.
You didn't. Okay, so I thought something was strange about her.
Well, okay, so
sense, yeah.
but I wouldn't have thought it was what it ended up being.
No, I don't think I would have. I don't know if I would have gone that far, but
And it's like it's weird because like so did this girl because like okay, if it had not been 20 years later, if it had only been 17 years later, and it just so happens to be on their daughter's senior year in drama that they do this, right? Then I could have bought into the whole like them not getting over it because that was her dad, right? But it's too late unless we're supposed to buy that she was actually 20.
Yeah, I don't know.
And pretending to be younger in high school where all these kids knew her.
Well, that was the only thing I was wondering. Yeah. Yeah, that didn't make sense. What also doesn't make sense, like, no, there's no school that would actually do that play.
Hell
after
no.
What happened the first time.
Hell
even
no.
if it had been 20 years,
nope.
They never would do that. So that was not believable at all.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Like, you can, you suspend disbelief in these movies.
Yeah.
That was
well, and I think that the very 90s shooting style of the opening was really good. Like those kind of things were like those kind of little things worked. I just think that there's some small tweaks that could have been made that really would have made this like an 8,
I totally agree. Yeah, because I was like, I could have stopped watching this. Like, I was really into it, but it wasn't perfect for some of the reasons we have discussed. Yeah. I definitely think you should go watch this, though, people. Like, this is...
Yeah, I don't hate it. This isn't one that I would be like, oh, that was a terrible movie. I think it's just kind of like, it's just middle grade for me, I
totally get that. Yep. Cool.
Well, that's some thoughts on the Gallows and then some thoughts on some other stuff.
It's a solid found footage movie, friends.
It is. And I think to your point, the experience of being in theater, I think really does add a level to it that I can't relate to. So I think that's a fair assumption that people who have, that background.
I wonder, I'd love to know if this one actually was in theaters, because I think that would be a cool viewing experience also. Like if this was shown up on the big screen, that could have been good.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay. So next week we're talking a first watch for both of us called Horror in the High Desert.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. So make sure you come back. Last week we did The Visit, which is a little more of a bigger production.
Before that we did, what was it? Project
Skyquake.
Skyquake.
Yep. So make sure you're caught up. We've done so many of these. We got to do something really special when we get to like 50.
We got a little ways still.
I know we do. It'll be here before we know it, though. We're already in the 20s.
Mid-20s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Cool.
cool. That's our thoughts on The Gallows 2015. Like I said, what I say, it's on Hulu. I think you can watch it on Hulu. So,
yep.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on this Friday. Tom and I will be back next week with Horror in the High Desert. So enjoy your weekend. Have a good week coming up, and we'll see you then.
See you later.